Assalamu alaikum everyone. In the gallbladder and biliary tract disorder, today we are going to talk about another disease, that is primary biliary cholangitis, also called primary biliary cirrhosis. As the name indicates, the problem is in the biliary tract, and angitis means inflammation, and there is a cirrhosis means that fibrosis and nodules formation, as well as there is deranged liver structure. So come to the definition. It is a chronic progressive cholestatic liver disease. Cholestasis mean that is lack of the biliary or the bile flow. It is possibly an autoimmune disease. It is predominantly found in the females, so the female to male ratio is 9:1. The age for these females is usually around 30 or more than 30 years of age, and it is usually the higher incidence in the smokers. Let's talk about its pathogenesis. It is most commonly seen that in 95% of the cases, these patients are anti-mitochondrial antibody positive. It is an autoimmune disorder. These antibodies are positive in these patients in 95% of the cases. And also there is a destruction, because there is a destruction which is chronic granulomatous inflammation in the interlobular bile ducts which are present within the liver. So it is basically intrahepatic bile duct disorder. There is a chronic granulomatous inflammation in these bile ducts within the liver and destroys these bile ducts within the liver, which causes the progressive damage by the lymphocytes. Due to progressive damage by the lymphocytes because of the granulomatous inflammation, it leads to ultimately fibrosis and ends up with the cirrhosis of the liver. So this was the pathogenesis of primary biliary cholangitis, also known as primary biliary cirrhosis. Now come to its clinical features. The most common feature is pruritus. Pruritus means itching of the skin. It is basically due to the deposition of bile salts in the skin. So it is the most common presenting complaint of the patient. Other late features is jaundice because of increased level of conjugated bilirubin. Because of obstruction here or fibrosis here, it leads to direct hyperbilirubinemia. So due to increased level of bilirubin, it causes jaundice, but it is a late feature. Also the patient complains of sometimes right upper quadrant discomfort, and osteomalacia is there in some patients. Osteomalacia is due to basically decreased levels of vitamin D, that is due to decreased fat soluble vitamins. Due to decreased fat soluble vitamins, it leads to osteomalacia. Due to decreased vitamin D, it leads to decreased calcium levels. So decreased vitamin D leads to decreased levels of calcium, and hence demineralization of bone occurs, that is osteomalacia. It is very rarely seen in the patients. Osteomalacia is very rare disorder in these patients, and osteoporosis is very common in these patients, that is bones becomes porous because of there is decreased production of insulin like growth factors from the liver, and also decreased there is decreased factors which are released from the liver, basically which are collagen synthetic factors. So due to low levels of the collagen synthetic, and also low levels of stimulators of the osteoblasts which are basically produced by the liver, it leads to osteoporosis, which is basically called hepatic osteodystrophy. So this is osteoporosis is common. And fatigue is also a common feature, and in some patients xanthomas, in severe cases xanthomas can be seen. Xanthomas are nothing but the yellow deposition of cholesterol on the skin. It is usually seen around the eyes. The reason for xanthomas is increased level of cholesterol. And there may be a mild hepatomegaly. It is a constant feature of the primary biliary cholangitis, while the splenomegaly occurs when there is a portal hypertension. Splenomegaly only in cases of portal hypertension, but mild hepatomegaly is the constant feature of primary biliary cholangitis or primary biliary cirrhosis. And also patient develops the weight loss because of the fatty malabsorption. As we have discussed, the bile salts and bile acids are responsible for the digestion and absorption of fats. So the patient develops steatorrhea, that is fatty stools, loss of fat from the body. As a result, there is a malabsorption, and which leads to the weight loss of these patients. Now come to the investigations or diagnosis. In the liver function test, there is a cholestatic picture. Cholestatic jaundice means that there is a lack of bile flow. There is increased level of direct bilirubin, increased level of alkaline phosphatase and increased levels of gamma gt in these patients is seen. And also you can check the anti-mitochondrial antibody levels. This is the hallmark test for the diagnosis of, so this is very important test for the diagnosis of primary biliary cholangitis. If this test is positive, then there is no need to do the liver biopsy. If this test is positive, because it's a very important test and it is present, these antibodies are present in more than 95% of the cases of primary biliary cholangitis. So the liver biopsy is indicated only in those patients in which there is uncertain diagnosis. If the AMA are positive, then no need to do the liver biopsy. Also, serum IgM levels are also high, that is, these are also positive, and there is increased level of cholesterol, as we have discussed that there is increased level of cholesterol. So increased level of cholesterol is because of under excretion. There is a degradation of cholesterol, or metabolism of cholesterol occurs in the liver, so there is no degradation, which leads to increased level of cholesterol in the body. Now come to its management. The mainstay of the most important step of the management is ursodeoxycholic acid. It is basically hydrophilic bile acid. So it is hydrophilic bile acid, and it should be given to these patients. It is the first line management. It is a very important step in the management. It reduces the decrease or reduces the disease progression, and increases the bile flow. The dose is 13 to 15 mg per kg per day. So it is first line of treatment. If this treatment is not working properly, if this drug is not working properly, then give the patient with second line management, that is obeticholic acid. It is a second generation bile acid. So this is second line of treatment. But the most important drug is ursodeoxycholic acid. If these two drugs are not working properly in these patients, then shift the patient to the immunosuppressants like cyclosporin, penicillamine, azathioprine, and as well as glucocorticoids. Give the patients immunosuppressants trial. Now come to the symptoms. The most important is to relieve the symptoms for the pruritus, that is itching of the skin. Give the patient cholestyramine. This cholestyramine is anion binding resin, anion, that is negative ion binding resin, and binds with the pruritogen substances, and then helps in the excretion of these pruritogens into the stools, and decreases the symptoms of pruritus in these patients. The dose is up to 16 gram per day. It should be given with the orange juice prior 8 gram prior to the breakfast and 8 gram after to the breakfast. And it has drug interaction with the ursodeoxycholic acid, so there must be a space between giving these two drugs. And if cholestyramine is not working properly, then the alternative drugs for the pruritus are rifampicin up to 600 mg per day, up to 600 mg per day, and naltrexone, which is basically opioid receptor blocker, or opioid antagonist, up to 25 mg per day naltrexone. It has been seen that in patients of primary biliary cholangitis, the pruritus may be due to increased or the upregulation of opioid receptors. So sometimes naltrexone works properly to reduce the pruritus or the itching. Also, plasmapheresis is an option, that is to remove the antibodies from the blood. For the malabsorption in the patients, that is weight loss because of decreased fat soluble vitamins, give these patient fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, and E, K supplements. For if the patient has developed the bone disease like osteopenia and osteoporosis, then give these patients calcium supplement, vitamin D, and bisphosphonate supplement. And last step, or the most important treatment, is, or it is curative, that is liver transplant. It is curative, and it is indicated if the patient has developed the liver failure. Now this was whole about the primary biliary cholangitis or primary biliary cirrhosis. Few words about the secondary biliary cirrhosis. In the secondary biliary cirrhosis, the problem is not within the liver, within the lobules or the interlobular bile ducts of the liver. The problem is outside the liver in the secondary biliary cholangitis or the cirrhosis, in which the most important cause is gallstones, Golidocolithiasis or bile duct stones, and also strictures in the biliary tract, and also sometimes the carcinoma of the head of the pancreas, which compresses this common bile duct. So all these are the causes of secondary biliary cholangitis or secondary biliary cirrhosis. Due to the obstruction, there is a backward flow of the bile, and there is inflammation in the intrahepatic bile duct lobules, so which leads to secondary biliary cirrhosis. The sign and symptoms of the secondary biliary cirrhosis are almost same as that of primary biliary cirrhosis, but the antibodies, that is anti-mitochondrial antibodies, are negative in secondary biliary cirrhosis, and serum IgM levels are also low, that is negative in case of secondary biliary cholangitis or secondary biliary cirrhosis. So this was whole about primary and secondary biliary cholangitis or cirrhosis. Thank you so much for watching this video.